Hi, and welcome to yet another movie review for Prey, the new released, at least as of August 5th, 2022, sequel slash prequel in the Predator franchise. And it was released in the United States on Hulu as a direct to streaming. But I believe in outside the United States, it may be on Disney Plus. I can't verify that for sure, but that is what I've heard in other reviews. So I wanted to give my 2 cents on this movie, just having watched it last night in the English and watching it again the next day, day after it was released in the with the Comanche dub, which I thought was really cool for them to have included that in the options for the streaming and on the Hulu side. But this will be a generally a no spoiler version of the review of the movie. I can't stand when people ruin movies for me, even if they do it unintentionally. So I'm going to try very, very hard not to give away too much, if anything. Maybe little bits of minute detail that doesn't really affect the story or what's happening in the movie. But even then, I'm going to try to avoid that. So I'm not even really going to talk about the trailer. I know there's some people out there who won't even watch a trailer to a movie they're interested in because they really just do not want any bias going into a film or a movie to sway them and whether they're going to like it or not, but at least give away any of the plot. And one thing again, I've watched many reviews on YouTube from varying different degrees, from hated it to loved it. So I'll save my opinion a little bit. But the biggest issue I think most people are having, or were originally predicting to have, a lot of people reviewing the trailer and complaining from the onset that this was going to be, how can this 90-pound soaking wet teenager take on a predator, which is a born and bred to hunt alien, as we have seen in every other version of the franchise. That these are professional hunters, which to me does make this scene or this period film perfect for the Indian, Native American, indigenous population that we know to be hunters and to be, survivalists, essentially. I mean, they don't have a lot of, there's literally no technology. They have very little as far as weapons go. They hunt to survive and are natural trackers because they're always hunting what they're tracking, or tracking what they're hunting. So it was, I think, a perfect marriage of these two, I don't want to say species, but of these two different kinds of hunters coming together. And I want to say, I mean, I know there has been a lot of talk about like, oh, this is the first time Predator has come to Earth. And I don't know where that is coming from. I don't know if the producers slash directors or studio or whatever is saying that, but I did not see that or get that intent or that feeling from the movie, because obviously it's like no one's it doesn't come right out and say that. But I can understand where it's like, okay, this is 300 years ago. That's generally about what the expectation this is taking place. It was 1717, something like that, where this was taking place. And So we can assume this is the first time, but I could see later in the franchise someone say, no, we're going to take this back to whenever, and go further back in time. And so one thing I'll say about this girl and this, you see if you watch the trailer, there's the main character is a teenager. To me, she seems about maybe between 15 and 17 in the film. I don't know how old the actress is, but you kind of, from her, this is what I meant about, I'm not going to spoil anything, but kind of give an impression. This is kind of what I assume just by watching this film. From her interactions and her life, she seems like she's in about that age group where she's just getting old enough where it's hey, I want to start doing serious adult stuff, and I'm tired of being a child. I want to transition into adulthood. I want to do what the adults are doing. I want to be treated like an adult. And so you get this, that obviously they come right out and say it, but she wants to become, a hunter, a warrior. I mean, you don't really get the sense of these, this tribe is at war with any other tribes. There's no, Indian versus Indian, native versus native. I don't want to use incorrect terminology, but you don't get the sense that there's these they're just warriors, but you get the sense that they are training to be, but they primarily just hunt, right? So everyone's proficient with bow and arrow and spears and knives, and that's how they train. And she is gravitating in that direction. She's training. She's getting proficient with weapons. She's good at tracking. So she naturally, that's what she, and again, I don't want to spoil anything about the movie, but there are other characters in the film that she, I don't want to say wants to imitate, but wants to follow in that path as well. So, which is okay, I mean, I get it. Maybe that's not a common thing in her culture at that period of time. Women are expected to, be healers or cooks or, take care of men. I don't know. I don't have enough knowledge in what was normal society in the Comanche tribes. But you kind of understand, or you assume that, okay, the way she is treated, the way she is talked to, that is not typical, and she is fighting back against that sort of mentality of no, why can't I? And it's only a few who are pushing back against her doing that. So it's not like the entire culture is against it. It's just a handful of people who are from her society that are saying, no, you should be cooking and cleaning, in the kitchen, whatever. And so I think people picked up on that early from the trailer and thought, okay, that's, here's yet another movie of this, we're being beat over the head with this modern wokeness or whatever. And it's a little bit there, but not what you would expect with what level there is generally in what you'd get in a film like this today. And I saw one other review, and they had a good point. Is when it was Ellen Ripley or when it was Sarah Connor, it wasn't, they didn't, neither one of those women, strong female characters, female leads, it wasn't, hey, we're fighting back against this, against society who says we can't do this. We're doing it, because we're told we can't. And you get that in this film a little bit, where it's well, not a little bit, probably a lot of it. I'm doing this because, and I think the words are literally that. I'm doing this because you told me I can't, or you think I can't. And I get it. I get where people might have issues with that, because it's like, it doesn't necessarily need to be, you don't need to be hit across the face with it, right? I'm doing this because you told me I can't. It was better when it was an Ellen Ripley or a Sarah Connor, where it was earned, right? It was, there is no one else. I am here, and here's the situation, and I'm just going to have, I'm just going to step up and do what I have to do to survive and to kick ass. And I mean, look at Sarah Connor from T1, right? Terminator 1. She is not a badass warrior, right? She likes to go out dancing. She's in her early 20s. She's, wants to meet a guy. It's just a typical woman in society who's just trying to survive, her own life, let alone trying to survive being killed by, robot Terminators. So, but she develops, right? She becomes, Sarah Connor in Terminator 2, where she is that badass warrior, trying to teach her son to survive, because she knows what the future is going to be. And then it's the name with Ellen Ripley. Ellen Ripley was like a computer operator, right? She's a data analyst or something like that, right? And through the process of elimination, her entire crew gets, killed by an alien. Spoiler alert, in case you haven't seen Alien. And she's the last one to survive because she's relatively smart, and she's like, hey, she's figuring things out. And she's like, okay, hey, I see what's going on, and I'm going to adjust, to meet the challenge. And so that happens in this movie. You get that. You have someone who is who wants to become that hunter or warrior, but you still have her telling you, therefore the audience or her society, I'm doing this because you say I'm not allowed to do it. It's very much in your face. I'm going to do this. No one can stop me. And it's like, okay. But it's not so much so that it distracts from the film and the quality of the film. So that being said, now I'll kind of give my opinion. I really did enjoy this movie. I tried to stay as far away from any prior information about. Maybe I watched a trailer when it was released, but I didn't even know it was coming. I wasn't anticipating a Predator sequel. Or prequel, however you want to look at it, but a new movie in the franchise that ends up happening before the original. So what I think it's because here's the thing: a lot of the other reviews I've had, people are always comparing. Oh, is this as good as the original? Is it better? Is it worse? Where does it stack in the the available movies in the franchise, AVP or Predators or The Predator or Predator 2. And yeah, is it better than the first movie? Yes. Yes, it is. But also no. Because this movie it fires on cylinders that did not exist in the first movie. The acting is better in this movie. The cinematography is better in this movie. The special effects, the visual effects, practical effects, better across the board. I don't think there were really any special effects, not special effects, but computer effects in the original movie. I think it was all practical effects, and it was probably better for it. This movie, I kind of got the impression of they knew early on that this was going to be streaming only, which is also very unfortunate. This should have been $100 million budget movie or more, because it should have gone straight to theater. But I don't think when, this relatively unknown director, no, I bet very few people who knew who Dan Trachtenberg was before this movie. It was probably we kind of like the script. We kind of like, your passion, guys, for making this movie. And we love the idea of you bringing in native speaking and native language to a franchise like this, and sort of kind of not a reboot, but like a reset of quality for a sci-fi movie in this franchise. And I think they said, okay, well, we'll give you, a budget of X, whatever that is. I think I tried looking it up. I didn't really get a straight answer on what the budget was, but I could say it's probably 50 to 60 million, probably budget. That's what it feels like. Feel free to, anybody correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe I'll find out, after searching later. But I would say the practical effects, the location, the acting. I mean, there's no big actors in this movie. That's one thing that's like I really loved about this movie is you didn't get some well-known Hollywood star that's going to bring in put butts in the seats, right? You got relatively unknown, and I'm sure these actors are probably they have acted before. I don't think anyone's like, hey, this is your first time acting, but you didn't get I'm a bad actor from any of these. Like it wasn't a hey, we're just picking up people off the street who happen to have, a native ancestry to fill roles. It was, these are quality actors that you've never seen before, right? Or maybe some of you have, but relatively unknown to, I think, general movie population. So, which was amazing. I love movies like that. That's why I wish this was in theaters, because if this had a $200 million budget and it had the same actors, and I think that's the problem is no studio is going to say, here, let me give you $200 million, and you don't have, a bunch of Hollywood celebrities filling out the roles, and you don't have, someone like an Arnold to take the main character, right? So it's kind of a give and take. You get these unknowns to come in and kill it, and you get a small budget. So, I think watching this, all the money is on the screen. I mean, they did an amazing job at the choreography and the fighting. They did the cinematography, as I mentioned. It's a gorgeous movie. I don't want to compare it with like a Dances with Wolves, but the one thing I recall from Dances with Wolves is like, oh my God, the cinematography is amazing. I could just watch this all day of these like sweeping vistas, and it's just beautiful. So it's great in all regards except weak in a little bit of computer animation. And I think it was, hey, computer animation is the last thing we're doing. It's post-production, and our budget left is X, and you can get what you get out of it. So do the best job you can, and then whatever it is what it is, and we got to release it. And I honestly think that's what happened, because if it was like, which I wish would have happened, is studios would have looked at it and said, wow, okay, we were really surprised by how well you did making this movie, so we're going to chip in, an extra whatever to, put this over the top as far as quality goes. And, we don't want this to get released until it's perfect. But the only scene, and even in the trailer, you can see it. It's the bear attack. I'm not going into detail more than that, but there's a bear. A bear gets, he's attacking, and you see this bear, and you think, okay, the bear doesn't look so great. It looks like a computer special effect. Still looks, in the movie, it plays, it's awesome, but you can tell, that's the one thing. It's like it takes you out of the movie because you can tell, hey, that's not a real bear. Now, there are other animals in the movie, and other encounters and other action with animals that it's like, it's great. You can't tell. It looks good, looks natural, and it doesn't take you out of the movie. Like, you're not like, oh, I'm not watching some computer animated, special effect. And except in this particular scene. And it's not it's not a super important scene. It's not, it doesn't make or break the movie, which is why you can just, compartmentalize that scene and say, okay, but except for that, it doesn't affect the quality of the movie. Everything is great. There is a pretty badass scene. They talk about it in a lot of the other reviews regarding the bear, and the level of I don't want to spoil anything, but to the degree to which this movie takes the R rating, if you will, and from a violence or gore level, right? It's awesome. Anyway, and if that's your thing, you're gonna love this movie because there is so much to do with it. There's so much in this movie, and not only that, but the sound design in this movie. Okay, I was listening to it at home and streaming, right? Watching it on Hulu with my headphones on. I'm using Apple AirPod Max with spatial audio turned on my 65-inch, what is it, a Sony TV. And my God, I felt everything in this movie. Like, when she's Native American, working on training, she's trying to become a warrior, she's got an axe, she throws this axe against this tree, and you hear this thing hit this tree, it's like this thud right against I felt like the room was shaking when this happened. It was amazing. They did such an amazing job. It wasn't just a Foley effect, like something hitting the tree. No, it was you felt this. And it was like that through this entire movie, where every contact or every, running through grass, you hear it, you feel it. It's like that's what puts you in the movie and why it makes such a good movie. And why I think that particular bear scene sort of takes you out of it. It's like you're kind of pissed. Like, man, I was in this movie until I saw that, and it sort of took me back out of it. Because it's from the minute it gets started, yeah, there's some buildup, and the story has to. I mean, this is a tight movie. It does not waste time. You get 10, 20 minutes maybe of introduction and like build up to like here's who they are, here's where they are, here's their society, and then it's just go, right? It is. And it's probably still 30, 40 minutes before the Predator shows up in the movie, maybe. And so it doesn't waste time. It doesn't, there's no fat to trim on this movie. I mean, and I kind of wish the opposite. I mean, I'm hoping there's a director's cut. I'm hoping it's like, hey, I got an extra 45 minutes of footage I'm going to release on the DVD or Blu-ray or whatever. Because once you see the tight, awesome quality of this movie, what you now wish for is like, man, I wish there was more time spent, developing to the point of the Predator, where it's like, here's more about what's going on in their, in this native culture, and I don't know what else they could add, but like I could just watch, the camera captures of the vistas and the streams and the mountains and the forests. It's just like, it's gorgeous, and it's all shot in Canada, and it's just gorgeous there. Looks amazing. So, what else? So from the perspective of this protagonist, this main character, taking on a Terminator, again, not a problem. And it's the same thing I'd say with the original movie, right? Arnold fights ultimately one-on-one against the Predator. Spoiler alert if you haven't seen the original Predator. But even in this sequel, Predator 2, right? It becomes I need to defeat this thing. It's stronger than I am. It has more weapons and technology and I don't want to say skill maybe, but all it does for fun. Seems like it's like this is their summer camp, right? They every summer take off and go hunt something. I don't know that, but that's kind of like I just sort of fill that in. But it's no matter who is fighting this Predator, they're outmatched, right? Arnold's strong. He's the big guy, but he tries to go one-on-one against Predator, strength versus strength, and he loses, right? And so ultimately, and I think all the other movies are the same thing. It's like, okay, we can't beat this thing just using pure strength. We have to think it through. We have to look for weaknesses, look for certain advantages that we may have based on our environment or our background or whatever, and apply that to the situation so that you can somewhat level the playing field, right? And in most movies, it's like let me start picking away and taking off pieces of your gear one at a time, destroying it or incapacitating it, so that you don't have that technological advantage. I think in every movie that has happened in some regard, right? Somebody's like trapped it, or somebody destroys its cannon, what have you. And so when you're looking at this teenage girl fighting a predator, it's like, no, obviously this thing's going to just kill her outright. And there is no doubt, even in this film, that is exactly what would happen if that's what she chose to do. But that's not, technically what's going to happen in this movie, right? Because obviously she would lose. And it would be a movie if the protagonist of the movie dies in, the first 5 minutes of meeting the predator. So obviously there are other things that happen to ultimately subdue, a predator. Man, that's not a spoiler. It's a movie. That's, no one, no one's going to watch a movie where the protagonist dies and fighting a predator, because then why watch the movie? But there are explanations. There are reasons. There are extenuating circumstances of how this character ultimately wins, right? So, and it's all very well explained, and I mean, I'm sure the ultimate critics are going to say, "Oh, that's crap," even that doesn't exist, that doesn't work, that's stupid. And I mean, that's their opinion, but I think it's earned in this film. I think if you take a step back and you say, okay, like I mentioned, every other Predator versus Man film has gone the same way. It is there's been some strategy, there's been some leveling of the playing field, if you will, for fighting against a predator that makes it work, right? And this is gonna be no different, absolutely. And I mean, I guess, okay, maybe a little bit of a spoiler, but she's not alone, right? And in the progression of the movie, she's not ultimately alone the entire time. She's got other help, if you will. I mean, there is others who are aware of the predator, who are fighting it, who have done some damage and some, have done some things. And so by the end of the movie, it's like the build up and all the things learned and all of the, forces, over the period of the film. It's like, okay, it all makes sense and it works itself out, and you go away feeling like, okay, that could have happened. It's at least somewhat believable. So it doesn't, again, take you away from it doesn't take you out of the movie because it's like, okay, that's total crap. Oh, that can never happen. Or, oh, she would never be able to do that. Or there are some, I want to say like ninja-like fighting skills that are going on that you're like, wow, okay, I didn't realize they were, so amazing at their hand-to-hand combat. But it's not so much so that you're just like, okay, again, it takes me out of the movie because that's just unbelievable. It feels right for the time and the situation, and you kind of you're just like, yeah, that's awesome. So, but in practicality, maybe not someone that with that kind of dexterity, if you will, could do those things. But maybe I'm wrong. So I won't go, complain too much about that. But one thing someone said in a review that I thought was cool, and it's kind of left out of the trailer, is like, It's ultimately a movie about a girl and her dog, which I thought was cool. She has a dog that's in the entire movie, from beginning to end, practically. I mean, there's only a couple times where it runs off to go hunt or it runs off to go do something, and then it comes back later. But it's awesome that there's you get the dog to tag along for the entire movie. So it kind of, I mean, it didn't necessarily need to be in the trailer, but I was kind of surprised that it wasn't, because it's another main character. It's practically the second main character, maybe third main character. But back to the why I think it was better than the original, yet not as good as the original. I mean, if the original was made today, and you just took a bunch of strong action hero type characters or actors and put them in a movie like this with the same dialogue and put them in the same jungle, and I mean, the special effects weren't great then, but maybe the special effects were on the same par as this movie. I don't think I would like Predator seeing it for the first time today in that situation, where it's just like, how many stupid movies are there like that are released every year, where it's just a bunch of action figure dudes, taking on something. It's just like, especially with a poor script. The reason the original movie was as awesome as it was is it was 1987, and it was Arnold, right? And you had Apollo Creed, and you had, the body Ventura, right? You had, it just was perfect for its time. It was sci-fi. It had, cheesy dialogue that, everyone quotes, ever since it was released, get to the chopper, right? Like that is, it's just, dare I say it, it's iconic. This is, what we grew up with Arnold. And it's like, you tie in like Arnold and all his awesome career of like great movies that many of us grew up with. And it was awesome. But if it was released today, would it be so awesome? I don't know. Probably not. And that's why I would say this one is a better quality movie than the original. Definitely. Everything's better. Across the board better. But still, Predators, it's the original. It's Arnold. It's action. It's science fiction and it was new. And that's one thing. You can't really compare this movie versus that movie because, Predator, it was new. It was something you hadn't seen before. And it was a pretty cool concept of this alien hunter coming to Earth to hunt, man. So awesome. And even then you didn't really understand. I mean, to me, watching the original, I didn't really understand. Like, okay, did this thing crash? I mean, obviously you figure it out that no, it can come and go as it pleases. And then of course the whole Predator race, whatever, it sort of develops over the course of the franchises, and you kind of understand this is what they're doing. But again, that was all new then. So I mean, that's one thing you can't compare. It's like, okay, if this was everything brand new, you had no preconception of Predator, and the original Predator came out today, it's like, maybe it would be really awesome because it was something new you hadn't seen before, and therefore it would make it better. But just comparing the script, comparing the acting, I mean I love Arnold. I mean Apollo Creed or Carl Weathers, sorry, you always call him Apollo Creed. They're not winning an Academy Awards, right? But they're well-known actors that you enjoy seeing on the screen because they deliver, and that's why Arnold has a career he has. Is he delivers. He does great action films. He it's a good enough actor that you're like you buy it and you're like, let me buy my ticket to see his next film, and that's why he's as successful as he was. And not to mention, both of them went on to become governors. So it's like, these guys are, they know how to get things done. Whether it's making movies or running for office, they make it happen. Anyway, and this movie, it's like I said, it's much better than all the other aspects of the movie. That like it doesn't have the A-list celebrities or people I didn't really know Jesse what Ventura was at the time. I mean, I think maybe I did, but I wasn't a huge wrestling fan, so it wasn't like I was drawn to that movie because of him. But I knew who he was when I was watching. I knew who Carl Weathers was, Apollo Creed. It's like you kind of go, oh yeah, these guys, cool. This is going to be a good movie. So not having that in this movie, I actually thought was great because, it's like you're not there paying attention to what, this celebrity actor is doing. And I think it wins points for that. But I will say Predator is still king because it's the original, right? It's the nostalgia. But this movie is better. So I don't know how you can make that shake out, but to me, that's how I look at it. It's like, yeah, better, but yeah, also no. Anyway, and so let me move on. Talk about the director who killed it on this movie. I thought Dan Trachtenberg killed it. He is, maybe you've never heard of him before, probably most people haven't. He directed 10 Cloverfield Lane. He's directed a couple episodes of great TV shows, Black Mirror. He did The Boys, which is the Amazon sort of a superhero TV show, or I guess you call it a TV show. He's done a few other things I haven't seen, so I can't really. He done like an episode of The Lost Symbol. I think it's like a Dan Brown thing having to do with like Da Vinci Code, whatever TV show. Haven't seen it. He's doing an episode of a TV series around Waterworld. Didn't even know about it, but he's going to be directing, I believe, the first episode. And it might be pretty cool. We'll see. I don't know where that's going to land, where it's going to be streaming or maybe regular television. I don't know. But I know Dan from his long-running podcast, webcast. I don't know what it was back then, but it was so long ago that we didn't really, I don't know if podcast was really the word for it, but, Toy Rad Show, TRS. Matter of fact, if you see his Twitter handle, Danny TRS, it originates from the Toy Rad Show, TRS. And it was an hour or so every week for 6.5 years, literally every week. I don't think they missed a week. Other than taking vacations, they'd pre-record shows for that week. But it ran continuously for 6.5 years. And what he and his other two hosts would do is review all things geek, right? It was a celebration of geekness. Movies, TV shows, comics, video games, whatever. It was, hey, let's normalize the geek fandom and everything we love, right? And you get to know these three hosts, especially Dan, from their opinions and so you like something, they give their opinion of that, or they review something that you eventually see, and so you get to sort of understand their opinions and what they're saying about the things that you have similar opinions for, right? And so one thing I can say about him that I have learned from 6.5 years of watching him do this show, he's not a cheesy kind of director who's going to go for the quick win and just, churn content to, go on to the next project. This guy, he's passionate about his geekness, right? He is going to, and then I think that's exactly what happened with Prey. He's responsible for co-writing the story for this movie, right? And Cloverfield, I don't know how much involvement he had in the story. I think it's a J.J. Abrams thing. So obviously he's picking up on a franchise there and moving the ball down the field. But he absorbs what he's working on, and he gets deep, right? He isn't in it, like I said, just to like add something to his resume. It is he believes in it. And when you get a director who's writing the story and then directing it, 99% of the time it's going to be amazing, because it's like he has the vision, he sees what it's going to be, and it's like, let me just do this. I know how to do it right. And there are so many times in certain IEPs out there that I wish to God someone had done that, because it's like the writer makes something good and you're like, oh, this would have been amazing. And it gets handed to the producers and the directors and it just falls apart, right? I count hundreds of movies and sci-fi franchises that have been ruined by that exact thing. And it's like it's too numerous to list, but let's talk Star Wars on since being purchased by Disney. It's, for an example, it's like, yeah, I think they did a great job on Iron Man, but that guy's not money. You know what I'm saying? He's ruined, in my opinion, Star Wars. But anyway, yeah, don't want to go down that road. So I think anything would be safe with Dan, because he's a very smart guy and he loves sci-fi and fantasy and all of the same geekiness things that people like myself are into. I think 10 Cloverfield Lane wasn't my favorite movie, but I think, given the story, which I don't know how much he had to deal with the story or having to done with the story, but I think it was done pretty well. I mean, it was a compelling movie to watch, where it's, there's more, because it was, you could definitely tell it was a Abrams movie, because he does here's a scenario of something going on over here that you don't see, so we're going to tell what's going to happen for the things that are happening next to it. So this, and then perfect example is like, something's going on the surface, but the story really is what's happening inside this place where they're at. And so it's all about the interpersonal relationships of what's happening, while something greater is happening elsewhere that ultimately is what's going on, and you're not really dealing with it. And so that's a total Abrams. Every movie he's done since Lost, there's here's what's this big thing happening, but let's go tell a story about the people, and then let's ignore the thing that's happening that we're not talking about. And I hate that. That's why I don't really like anything he's done, or a lot of what he has done. But I think Dan did as great a job as he could in that situation, right? And when J.J. Abrams, who's had success, says, "Okay, kid, let's see what you can do," and he says, "Oh, you can direct this movie, and cement your status as a full-on Hollywood director. You're gonna do it, and you're gonna do a damn good job, because it's your first break, right?" So I think he did a great job, and I think this movie, I can't imagine this doesn't catapult him into bigger and better things. Like, he's directing episodes of TV shows. Maybe they're streaming shows, but let's call them TV shows. And they're one-offs, right? He's doing one episode of Black Mirror, one episode of The Boys. So far, one episode of Waterworld, one episode of the Lost Symbol series, Dan Brown's series. I think that's going to go away. I think it's going to be, hey, we want you to direct our next feature film. Because he's now got 2 feature films. Both of them, one, Prey is going to be a huge success. It's going to be seen as a huge success. It didn't go to theaters. It's not earning box office dollars. But everybody's saying, damn, this should have been in the theaters. It would have been a box office success. But obviously it's not. So you can't point to the numbers and say, look how good a job I did, here's the results. But I think anyone in the business is going to point to it and say, that was successful, you did a great job, here's our next feature film, that's going to be in theaters, that's going to make, it's going to have a $150 million budget. We want you to direct it. Whether that's going to be comic book or sci-fi, what have you. But I think that's going to be his. I'm not saying he's going to be only ever do those, but that's where I think it's going to be his bread and butter, is because he, like many of us, we're given the opportunity to make a film, coming from the like a geek background, that you're going to go with where your passion is, and so some sort of sci-fi fantasy thing, I think he would just kill it again, and I don't know. I don't know what to say about him, but I think he's a safe director to bet on, because he's going to make quality, and he understands what quality is, and from reviews and just getting to know his opinions, I've agreed with him more often than I've ever disagreed with him on opinions on other IPs, if you will. So, and then one thing he does pretty much regularly is he thinks of things I never would have thought of, right? So he'll pull things out and say, okay, look at this, and I'll be like, yeah, I did not think about that. And to me, he's a like I said, a very smart, thoughtful director, and I think that's what's going to help him and make him a successful director. And make more movies like Prey, where maybe you think of the idea of Prey and you're like, why the hell are they making another Predator movie? That's gonna be terrible. But the delivered result is something of quality, and I think he's going to do that with what I hope to God he gets, like Disney hires him to do Star Wars stuff, because Disney's not going to stop making Star Wars crap, and the only way I would ever watch something of theirs again is if they get somebody like Dan to clean it up and make it worth watching. And my only concern would be would these studios get out of his way and let him actually do it? And that's where I think he needs to build up that clout to be able to say, this is mine, I'm going to make it my way, or I won't work for you. And he's at that point in his career where he's gonna have to maybe compromise and say, oh, Disney, $200 million movie, sure, I will direct it as written, I won't change anything, and it'll just be crap, and it'll be attached to his name. And I don't know enough about Hollywood and working with studios and how much they say, oh, hey, you're the director, do what you want. I mean, I don't know, but I think if it was left out to him, like this movie, you can tell this was his from beginning to end. And I think the only constraints he had was budget. So if that is the case going forward, I would feel completely satisfied with what he's going to produce and what he's going to come up with. Anyway, so that's kind of my opinions, and why I feel the way I do about Prey. Great movie. I am concerned. I mean, this is teased as the first new movie. There could be sequels to this movie following the same sort of time period, right? It's going to be a direct sequel to this movie. Perhaps there is kind of a little bit of a tie-in to Predator 2 from this movie. There is some sort of, and then even I think I saw an interview with Dan. He mentions hey, it's maybe could be another movie based on this timeline, and that's where I would be. I don't know. I mean, again, he did it well in this movie. He definitely can do it well in another movie if he is directing it or if he is even involved in the story. Where it's okay, this girl ultimately defeats the Predator. Great. Did it very well, and it made sense. But would the sequel maintain that? Would it be, okay, now she's this experienced warrior, and she's just going to, pick this thing up over her head and throw it, across the field? Hope to God not. But, I mean, I have no issue with her being the protagonist and following her story into the next film, as long as the story supports practical reasoning and problem solving and solutions, and nothing gets like, forehead slapping where you're just like, that just couldn't happen, that kind of, I mean, we've all seen it. We've seen it in movies and TV shows our entire lives. We're just like, okay, I can't continue watching this. This is crap, because that could never happen. And I have faith in Dan. I think if he's involved, that's not going to happen. If it's sort of like, hey, the studio wants to make a sequel and we're going to hand it over to this other guy, and maybe Dan give you an executive producer credit, so you're going to supervise the film, but it's written and directed by somebody else, that'd be a little dangerous. I don't know. Otherwise, yeah. And so I think that's kind of sums up everything I wanted to say. Again, thanks for listening. If you had, I didn't actually think this was going to go on, coming up on 51 minutes. I thought this would be like a 10-20 minute discussion. But thanks if you have listened this far. Appreciate it. I don't have anything else on my channel, so I don't worry about subscribing or following. Maybe you just found this by Google searching or searching on YouTube. But thanks for listening. Love to hear your thoughts and opinions. Maybe you've seen it and you want to give your feedback in the comment section. I'll definitely check in and interact. Respond to anything anyone has to say. So thanks again. Maybe I'll talk to you in the next movie.